And here we are. So thank you for being here this afternoon. We are talking about this diversifying outdoor spaces through community collaboration. It's a mouthful, and I'm really pleased that we have a couple of important folks for us, members of River Management Society. I'll have them go into their background a little bit more. But Chris Geden from the River City Foundation and Herman Jenkins from Friends of the Rouge. So we've got Mid-America here with us. And as we get going, just a couple of things. Let's see here. This is the second Tuesday of the month, and it's when we do our river management roundtables. Oh, my name is Risa Shimoda, the executive director of RMS. And the roundtable topics are one of two kind of types of topics. Either they're kind of operations oriented, permits, user conflicts, people management, that kind of thing on the river stuff. And then there's workplace culture, which can be anything from soup to nuts, but it's more soft skills off the river, behind the scenes, and what goes on within the folks who are actually doing the work on the river. And we do them every second Tuesday of the month. So just ask, this will be a small group today, but just try to keep yourself muted. If you have questions, put them in the chat. At one point when we're kind of over the presentation, we'll probably just ask you to take yourself off of mute and just go ahead and ask questions. So, oops, here we go. Again, we've got two folks with us, and we really appreciate the work they do. They're going to tell you about it, and here we go. Now, Chris's name is first, but Herman's going to go first in our little presentation. So just go ahead and just say, next slide, Herman, when you want to go to the next place.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Risa, for this invitation and putting this roundtable discussion together. Very grateful and humbled to be with you and our guest today to talk about our work on the lower branch of the Rouge River. My name is Herman Jenkins. I am the Trails Manager at Friends of the Rouge, and you can go to the next slide. Friends of the Rouge is a nonprofit watershed conservancy, and our mission is to restore and protect the Rouge River watershed. And we do this through stewardship, collaboration, and education. Now, the Rouge is located in Southeast Michigan and is the most urban watershed in the state, encompassing 3 counties, 43 municipalities, including much of the city of Detroit. The Rouge watershed encompasses all 4 tributaries of the Rouge River that flow southeast and coalescing at its main stem as it drains into the Detroit River. It includes 476 square miles, 400 lakes, impoundments, and ponds, 127 river miles, 20,000 acres of parkland, 300 parks, and 27 nature preserves. You can go to the next slide. Friends of the Rouge began paddling the Rouge in 2003, and the idea was, what better way to build allies for the river than to get people out on the river paddling? The challenge is that there were few access points on the lower Rouge River where levels were typically high enough to sustain a paddle boat. And because historically there was so much pollution that many people still believe that if you got into the Rouge River, you might melt. This isn't necessarily true unless you have a fetish for ruby slippers. But going back as far as its indigenous roots, the Rouge, bye, sunshine, I love you. All right, my daughter's headed out to softball practice. But going back as far as its indigenous roots, the Rouge has always been seen as a working river. But the growth of cities, onset of industrialization, coupled with few regulations, led to a river that was channelized, its natural meanders eliminated, and the river was so polluted that in 1969 it actually caught on fire. Friends of the Rouge was founded in 1986 and sponsored its first Rouge rescue cleanup. And in 1989, with the Rouge River Advisory Council, developed the first remedial action plan to eliminate the river's beneficial use impairments. So thanks to the work of Friends of the Rouge and stakeholder partners, the river is being greatly restored. Cleanups, monitoring, promoting green infrastructure, like rain gardens, porous pavers, supporting environmental and legislative policy. All of these uh, stewardship efforts have led to some great successes. The river is now safe enough for paddle sports. It's a river where sensitive fish like the red-side dace has returned. There are thousands of trees that Friends of the Rouge volunteers have planted and countless invasive plant species removed. Beaver are returning to the watershed, and there are other signs that demonstrate that the work that we do matters and can make a difference. But as we consider this in our watershed, we also understand that there are antiquated CSOs that still dump wastewater into the Rouge River. We can't sustain the gains that we've made to revive life in the watershed if these issues are not addressed and done so in an equitable way. Next slide, please. This slide here shows us, yep, that the majority of antiquated systems for handling storm and wastewater here on the left are in areas where Black and brown people live, and other people who have been historically left out or who communities suffer from longstanding histories of racism, disinvestment. So when we consider this idea of quote unquote healing these waters, we must also consider what it means to do so through a lens of equity. So next slide, please. In my role as the trails manager, I am working to establish a 29-mile water trail and network of connected greenways on the lower branch of the Rouge River. The trail will span 10 cities from the city of Canton on the far west all the way to the Detroit River. In parallel, the Rouge Gateway Greenway will fill in gaps and connect Lower Rouge communities to a larger regional network of greenway trails, including the newly constructed Joe Louis Greenway in Detroit, the Downriver Link Greenways, Iron Bell Trail, and the Great Lakes Way. This map here shows the planned and existing multi-purpose trailheads with universally accessible launches planned for our water trail. Looking at the pictures here on this slide, you can see that this is an urban water trail, and in many ways, the tale of two worlds. The upstream sections of the river, there's this dense tree canopies, amazing samples of Michigan's wildlife, blue heron, green heron, deer, wild turkeys. I mean, it truly is spectacular how the urban landscape disappears. And then you get into the industrial channel, and it's like going on this journey through the history of Detroit's manufacturing. That picture in the background there is actually the original Ford Rouge manufacturing complex. But nonetheless, community engagement throughout this process is intentional and inclusive of racially and ethnically diverse voices. The spectrum of public participation guides our project to inform, consult, involve, and collaborate and empower residents to be a part of the decision-making process that manifests this vision. This approach centers those affected by a decision with the right to be involved in the decision-making process and a promise that the public's contribution will influence the decision. The model promotes sustainable decisions by communicating the needs and interests of all the participants, including the decision makers. The Lower Rouge River Water Trail Leadership Committee sort of evolved through this model, and that's the vehicle that we use to engage the public in this process. It's transparent, it's fact-based, and the public is given equal status and shares in the decision-making authority. We chair that leadership committee. We meet bi-monthly. It includes the municipalities, community organizations, businesses, passionate individuals, paddling enthusiasts, Wayne County Parks, as much of the trail runs through property owned by Wayne County. And again, we meet monthly and leverage our collective resources and capacity to seek the state, federal, and private grant funding to advance the effort. So now across the 9 communities on the water trail, we have found people with the will, the hope, the desire, but they're also bound by circumstances that could lead to this feeling that there's just no way that this could happen in their community. There are communities in which I'm working to promote our trails work where some people don't even know the river is there, set aside from the fact that you can paddle on it. They don't know that the river belongs to them. There are communities in the industrial channel that I mentioned, like South Dearborn, Allen Park, Melvindale, Detroit, River Rouge, that are actually cut off from the river by these walls of industry that keep the river out of sight and therefore out of mind. So a lot of my work is building connections to the river and helping people build a relationship with the river because people will take care of something that they care about. So, in partnership with the National Kidney Foundation of Michigan, Friends of the Rouge came together to create some ways to uplift the neighborhood and health benefits of trails, trails access, trails development in these Lower Rouge communities, particularly in communities of Inkster, Wayne, and Westland. This work was supported by a Center for Disease Control and Prevention's REACH program grant that was Racial and Ethnic Alternatives Community Health, and this unique partnership helped foster physical activity in these communities by promoting trails use, paddling trips on the water trail, community connections, and opportunities to explore and also restore wildlife habitat, which in turn in dry dock pop-up. Friends of the Rouge, we developed this dry dock pop-up, and it has really become a key component to building these community connections. At a dry dock pop-up, we bring a canoe. Um, we gotta go to the next slide. Yep, there we go. At a dry dock pop-up, we bring a canoe, a kayak, the terrain model of the Rouge watershed, and our trails project plans, and we meet people where they are to share this vision. And it's been a great way for us to spread the goodwill and uplift, the potential of a destination water trail on the Lower Rouge. We'll bring the dry dock pop-up anywhere, farmers markets, neighborhood events, festivals, schools, wherever it makes sense for us to be to spread the good news about paddling and outdoor recreation. We'll show up. And the National Kidney Foundation of Michigan, again, has been a key partner in this work. So to give you just a real idea of how this works in real time, the city of Inkster, which is predominantly Black, had been missing in action in terms of our leadership committee meetings and participating in the development of this trail. And when I came on board a few years back, my thinking is being Black, I don't want the city of Inkster to miss out on this opportunity. So the dry dock pop-up was a great way, a great segue for us and for me to make some inroads and build relationships, real grassroots, ground level relationships in the city of Inkster with my people. We participated with the dry dock at a farmer's market, established some wonderful working relationships with that group, the Inkster Task Force. And the task force members joined, Inkster task force members joined our leadership committee, and they've been full participants in the process since that moment. We've worked with them to help facilitate community input and engagement on some of the Wayne County Parks project improvement projects. We worked with them to secure a design development grant for a kayak launch in Inkster. And we hope that launch will be installed within the next 18 to 24 months there in the city of Inkster. We partner with the task force to build a coalition of volunteers to clear log jams along the water trail in Inkster. And we will host our second annual Summer Magic paddle trip and health fair in Inkster this August. But the impetus of all of that work was simply us showing up and saying, hey, did you even know that the river is there with the dry dock pop-up and building those relationships to facilitate the future in which we now live. So we've used this model of engagement to form partnerships with other community groups and organizations to form the localized stakeholder work groups to help us manifest this full vision of the trail, coordinated paddle trips with diverse partner organizations, including the Queer Outdoors, the Black Pack, the Detroit Bird Alliance, and BIPOC Birders of Michigan. And all of these partnerships are a gateway to the Rouge and opportunities to be stewardship champions for the watershed. And I'm delighted to play a role and be a part of the teams that are doing this work. So thank you. Yeah, it's this final slide here is just some images of our paddle trips that we've coordinated with the Queer Outdoors, the Black Pack, and our birding paddle trips. You can see our full schedule of events here. When I first joined the team about 4 years ago, we did a schedule of 3 to 4 paddle trips. Now we do 11 when we include our youth camps that we work with. Great Futures out of Norwayne, and Cesar Chavez Academy is another group out of Southwest Detroit. And in Southwest Detroit, if you know anything about Detroit, is a heavy immigrant population there, strong Latino community. So we're thrilled to work with Cesar Chavez and be able to invite them on a paddle trip this summer as well. So that's it.
All right. Are you ready for me to go?
I am. I'm done. I'm not sure if you were talking, Risa, but you're muted.
I can't get to my button.
Uh, Risa, you're muted, and Chris, you're muted now as well.
Chris, we could hear you before.
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yes,
I hear both of
Oh,
you.
I thought you said I was muted.
go.
Okay. I am Chris Geden with River City Outdoors. Could you advance the slide? About River City Outdoors. So we started as it was just River City Outdoors. Well, actually, Terrain and Big Muddy Adventures have been around longer than River City Outdoors. So Terrain is a magazine that talks about outdoor things like races and big, large paddles and all kinds of outdoor activities in the metro region. We do get dabble in other states, but it's mostly about Missouri and Illinois. Big Money Adventures is an outfitter. We get people out onto the bigger rivers. So here in Missouri, the mighty Mississippi and the Missouri River. As you can see here in the picture, that's a 30-foot canoe and a Voyager. And so we can get up we've got about 5 or 6 of them. So we can get up to 35, 40 people out onto the river at one time. We do overnight trips, and I'm also a guide as well because representation matters, right? Um, and then River City Outdoors, we are part of the Thrive Outside community. So 3 years ago, we wrote a grant and we were awarded the grant, and we actually have come to the end of our cycle, but we still are very much a Thrive Outside community. And we have a million partners, and we'll discuss that as we move along. Next one, please. So this is our network. This is what all Thrive Outside communities have a network because we use collective impact as our model for reaching out. So you can read just as well as I can, but some of the more interesting partners, Fresh Time Market. Who would think a grocery store would have anything to do with an outdoor programmer? Let's see. Environmental justice and conservation. So we're more than just recreation. LGBTQ advocacy and community development. Again, we love to get in boats. We love to be outdoors, but we also know that there's a fight, and we want to be on the right side of that fight. So we're very, very intentional with who we partner with. So the LGBTQ community as well as Black and Brown folks. Next one. Okay, this is one of my favorite slides. It kind of shows you the diversity that is River City Outdoors. Last summer, we had an all BIPOC stand-up paddleboard lesson. So we taught about 20 youth to stand up paddleboard. Here's some of our kiddos on the Mississippi River. So what we're trying to do is get people who you don't normally see outdoors. Skiing. We actually had a skiing program, and this is actually year 2. We're going to roll into year 3, and we've had the same 30 kids for 3 years. It'll be 3 years. And the cool thing about this is those kids learned how to ski like in two nights. By the time we wrapped up our first season, they were going down like the Black Diamond or whatever it's called. Way too big for me to go down. I did go down this year. I should say I fell down, but it was fun, and they loved it, and I've really learned to love skiing as well. And then one of my passions is fishing, and even though that girl is posing, I believe these two actually caught a fish because I'm standing right there. I think I had to run over and take the fish off because they started screaming. As happy and fun as they look now, sheer terror 30 seconds later. I'm not even kidding. We did a canoe class with one of our schools, and the kids actually learned how to ski canoe, and it was just, they were so happy, and the noise from the water was just amazing because they were so happy and joyful. Then we stood up a gear library. That this gear in the lower right hand corner, we had we have tents to loan out. We have backpacks. We got all kinds of camping gear that we loan out, and it is for the metro region has access to this. So so that's just one of the things, because what we want to do, the short of it, is remove barriers to the outdoors. So these are some examples, and this is a little guy here. We did a trash bash, and the kids actually really, they kind of make a game of it, as far as getting on the picking up trash and seeing to pick up the most trash. Next slide, please. All right. So, and I already talked about the gear library. We work really closely with a lot of similar organizations. So Missouri Department of Conservation, River Relief. And so people are being able to put their little communities in touch with us, and we're able to serve the different communities with our gear library. Well, the biggest thing that we're doing now is we work with Boys and Girls Club, Gene Slay the Y, and things like that. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that people can get outdoors on their own, that they don't always need a Herman or a Chris or a Risa to get outdoors, that they can, we can support them. We can tell you where to get a boat. We can tell you where to get a fishing pole. We can tell you where to get stuff, but they have to kind of navigate this. It's been 3 years, and we're kind of saying, okay, you've got to navigate this yourself. We're not going anywhere, but there's other people who need our help more intensely. So that's what we try to do. And then we've been talking about creating a state office of outdoor recreation. So right now, currently 25 states in the country have outdoor recreation offices. And so we're trying to figure out what that looks like. And we may start with a citywide outdoor recreation and then work our way out. But that's just something that we've been looking at and talking about. And I think it's really a nonpartisan thing. So I think it's something that we can get everybody behind. Next slide, please.
So if there, thank you guys for going through your programs. And if folks, because this is a small group, if you have a question, you can just take yourself off mute and tell us who you are and what your question is. I have one for to kind of get us started, and it's Chris, you alluded to it a little bit, but Herman, it's since you're not necessarily doing classes, you're doing trips. What if after a few years, and Chris mentioned 3 years, you've been introducing people to the opportunity to do stuff on the water, boats, paddling, and they like it, sort of. So then what happens? To go from the biggest hurdle sometimes is the first invitation to learn what it's like, or to learn what gear is, or to learn how to, do be on the water for a mile or 2 or 5 safely. And someone likes it, then what do? So it's the sampling is one part, and then how are you either intentionally or kind of figuring your way out to help people become, enthusiasts, or give them the opportunities to become enthusiasts? Because that's like, you're muted, but that's kind of like a next step after we're doing what you guys are doing. Love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, oftentimes, it's kind of funny, because we're a watershed conservancy that has taken on the challenge of built environment projects. And because the organization has been around since 1986, there are a lot of people who have been introduced to Friends of the Rouge through its other pillars of work. So through our restoration work, through our frog and toading events, through our water quality monitoring events, where we're doing bug hunts, and obviously the different types of bugs we might find on a bug hunt tell us indicators about the health of the river. So in many ways, the Trails program is new to some of our long time volunteers. So that's been an advantage for me. That long time volunteer base, though, might not necessarily be as diverse and reflect the diversity of the metropolitan region. So organizationally, we've challenged, to accepted that challenge to cast a broader net, and be more inclusive. And the Trails program really is sort of an opportunity for us to do just that. It's forward facing. It's impacting these communities directly where people live, and drawing sort of a direct connection between people, use, and access to the naturalized environment. Um, so yeah. And then again, like you said, we see it the other way around too, where we're introducing folks to our organization and to the river through paddling, or paddling experience, and then they can get sucked in that way as well. Like, wow, I didn't even know I could do this, right in my backyard. What are other ways that I can help support this? And then it's an opportunity to say, hey, well, now you can come help us with one of our log jam days, or our restoration team is doing some tree plantings, with a corporate sponsor. So, yeah, it goes both ways.
Mhm. No, I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, if they enjoy being on the river, it's not just about becoming a better paddler, but it's returning to the river to help you do more work on the river, which is,
Absolutely.
yeah, not become more accustomed to that environment of doing stuff on the river. Excellent. Chris, tell us more about your how you encourage people to, you talked about your network. How do you kind of encourage people to, you give them the baby bottle, and then they're liking it and now they want to eat real food. So how do you move them into a next step, and what is that like?
So, we have River City operates the boathouse in Forest Park, which has paddle boats, canoes, and SUPs. And then we have another location in the county here in St. Louis. And a great place to start, on the water is something real super safe, super easy, and fairly inexpensive. So we take kids down to the boathouse and they can paddle on paddle boats, which you don't need any skill at all, but they're on the water. They're getting that experience of being on the water. And then you take another step. Let's get on canoes or SUPs or kayaks. And then hopefully, if everything has worked right, the next thing they're ready to get on the Mississippi River or the Missouri River. So that's kind of how it doesn't always work like that. No. Does every person who goes on a big muddy trip do all these steps? Absolutely not. A lot of the private trips, um, they're clients, they're booking. But when we do water program for kids, water safety, we spend a ton of time on water safety, and then it's rehashed when we begin to talk to kiddos on when we do the bigger river trips. So it's kind of okay. There's steps to it. They're not set in stone, but and if we can get something on dry land before we do any water, that's even better. But this is the progression to a small non-moving body of water to the largest river in North America. So yeah, that's kind of the progression there, and that's like with anything. If you're going to go camping, don't go camping for a week. Your first time, go camping for a night.
Mhm.
Don't try to paddle. If you're going to paddle, don't paddle for 8 hours. That's not how you start.
Mhm.
So it is baby steps with intentionality of hopefully they get the bug and they become a river rat, and the next thing you know, they're asking you, "Hey man, I want to paddle down the Mississippi by myself."
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good to note too that you know, we partner with a lot of organizations that work in Chris's mold. So like the Black Pack and the Queer Outdoors, like they are establishing those relationships within their constituency groups, within their friend groups, and creating those unique experiences that allow them to scale it up. We're trying to create the built environment space that didn't exist, to allow all these groups to be able to utilize it with a sensitive ear, knowing that there are particular groups that don't even know the.
Right.
So we kind of play, I guess both sides of the coin, you could say, and trying to cast that broader net and having our own series of opportunities, but also working with those organizations that are already out there doing the work. We're not reinventing the wheel. So being able to work with Outdoor Afro and the Black Pack, as I mentioned, to do this, BIPOC birders, they're doing the work. They have the opportunity to say, well, yeah, we went and watched birds on the Rouge, but next we're going up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to, to take this to the next level of an experience. That's where we see that evolving from the work that we do. We can plant the seed, but there are other orgs out there doing more of the heavy lifting to create greater, broader experiences for sure.
Yeah. So what's like an example like Black Pack? I love the name of that group. Like how you would do something with them or how they would work with you and then do something else, just as an example.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, to give you a clue on how that works, we have some forward-facing events. National Trails Day just passed. We had a paddle trip. There were some tabling opportunities there. We knew we would be there tabling and hosting a paddle trip, so we invited the Black Pack to come and be a part of that tabling experience. So they're able to reach constituencies that they weren't able to in a different community along the trail with their work being based primarily in Detroit. Now we're 45 miles out into a suburban community making those types of connections, with their organization. So that's one way, right?
Mhm.
And then the other is, so where we host a paddle trip specifically with the Back Plaque that's actually coming up in July, and work with Metro Parks to provide free access to rentals for that trip. And again, it's just an opportunity for those who didn't know that they could paddle on the Rouge to learn that through the Black Pack, and vice versa.
Mhm. And you've got gear on your own? The Friends of the Rouge, do you have lots of gear, little gear?
Actually, we work with outfitters to support our events. Yep, yep. So we, the whole goal is we don't own any of this. When we're done, we're not going to own a single multi-purpose trailhead, a single university accessible launch. You know what I'm saying? We won't own or manage, an ounce of or an inch of that Greenway Trail. This is for the people and for these communities, and those blue economy benefits or outcomes that can result from this type of new built environment in these communities. Again, the community should benefit. It should be a localized business that now is offering those kayak rentals at these different multi-purpose trailheads, or managing a kayak vending machine, at that particular, site and location. So that ultimately is the goal, is that, you could have, trails, town experiences, growing, off of, this destination world-class water trail. And we believe that it is just that. We've applied for a Pure Michigan State water trail designation. We think on the heels of that will come a national one. I mean, there are some sites to see on this trail. We're on an international border, so
Right,
yeah.
right. Well, thanks for all that. Anyone have any questions? I see a few people out there, not too many hands up or chats. I haven't been even really looking. Um, so we'll just thank you, and we'll encourage folks to um, come back, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do this roundtable thing every second Tuesday. Like I mentioned, I'm going to, oh, here we have a question. John McLaughlin, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you for all the work you're doing and your inspiring presentations. My question pertains to the stage prior to Reese's question. And for context, I live in a very lily white community, working at a very white university. And I'm wondering what, clearly invitations are important, but invitation from someone who looks like me might not be all that welcoming for someone who doesn't look like me. And so I'm wondering, from your experience, what is most effective in helping people feel welcome? That this place is going to be something they want to experience, activities they want to do, in ways that they're going to feel welcomed and belong.
So, and Risa, myself and Herman were kind of talking about this today. So, the Sierra Club is very, very super white, ultra white, and they've expressed interest in working in the same communities that I serve. I think one of the things, the biggest thing is, you can't just show up to a community and expect everybody to love you and to want what you're selling, or, here's the thing. Black, white, or green, we have to develop a relationship.
Sure.
Is it easier for me to go into a black, white? Of course it is. But that doesn't mean those people like me, care, or trust me. It's the relationship. Black, white, or green, if you take the time to develop a relationship with the community, who's ever in charge, let's say a pastor of the church, you take the time, you develop a relationship with them, then they give you the okay. The executive director at our Black Y is a part of the community, a huge part of the community. Understanding how different communities and groups work. And remember, Herman and myself love being on the water. That does not mean everybody wants to be on the water. I think they should, but what do people want to do? They might want to be birders. We have a group, Black Transgenders. They love to bike and camp. Camping and biking is what they do. They've never asked me for a boat or anything else. So I think you absolutely have to meet people where they're at, and you have to develop and maintain relationships. It's not like, hey man, come here, let's go paddle with this white guy. That will never work. It'll never work. In fact, a white guy asked me to paddle 15 years ago, and I said absolutely not. So, and now obviously I'm a boat guide, but it's not. And let me be 100% transparent. I've worked in the city of St. Louis either for the Parks and Rec Department or the YMCA for the last 30 years. So my relationships were already established when I got to River City Outdoors. But there's still new relationships to be made. And I go into that the same way. I'm not looking for anything. Oftentimes the relationships will be transactional until they're transformative. And that's what you have to understand, I think, about whatever community you're trying to serve.
Absolutely. I would second that 100%. As I mentioned, when I joined Friends of the Rouge, I was the only Black employee on staff. So the perception of the organization is that it is lily white. It helped, one, the organization being intentional and realizing that they needed to diversify and make it easier on themselves to make some of those inroads. There's an advantage, diversifying your staff. But secondly, as Chris mentioned, you have to go in and develop real relationships. That's really what it's about. That dry dock pop-up, that's all it is. I'm not asking them for anything. I'm showing up to your event and trying to give you something. I'm giving you information. I'm giving you resources, trying to build community connections. I'm not asking you for nothing. I'm showing up and I'm bringing you something, and asking that question, what else do you need? How else can I help? And I think, from that, you can planting those seeds, you can definitely watch the flower grow and bloom. And then two, I think understanding what's already happening on the ground. That can't be understated, what Chris said. What do people want to do? What are they already doing? And who's already doing the work? Finding out who those folks are and however big or small those groups are, and building those relationships from there are always very helpful too.
Ooh, you got some wisdom. You got a bunch of wisdom here. Any other questions? I have one more slide, I think, and then I'll just stop sharing here in a second. We have some other stuff coming up. We'll come back to more questions because we have plenty of time. We have some more technical things coming up next week on hydropower, and it'll be interesting that the theme of it is from the public standpoint. If you want something changed, just show up. Just show up at the meeting, just be present. I think that's a phrase in so many of the things that we're doing that is really important. We have some wild and scenic crossover between visitor use management on wild and scenic rivers. And then this would be interesting to you, John, also. Our next roundtable will have a gal who runs a program in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Boathouse, and she reaches out kind of like Herman does and Chris does, lots and lots and lots of groups, from the nurses to the schools to the sporting people, to get them fired up about that they'll be the slalom site for the 2028 Olympics. So that's this program. And then another program where it's a program kind of close to me, where I'm part of a very white paddling club, and we wanted to diversify. So we reached out to this group that reaches out to Black and brown people in DC. And we have a 3-part partnership. We brokered their expertise. They're using our technical expertise. We're using a paddling school to be the house for activity. So it's a little bit more of the same, and also pretty intentional. So there's more to come on this topic. And I'm going to stop sharing here. And think if there's still a few other people here. If you have questions, don't be shy. We have a wealth of experience and knowledge here with us. And if there's none, we can call it a day, I guess. So we'll record this. We'll post it hopefully tomorrow. That Risa gets her act together. And thank you both so much for being here and being really frank, and and also like to celebrate your successes, because both of you have years under your belt to show what can happen as a result of being there.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, both of you guys.